My name is Marco Franchin and I work at Meta Group. The webinar of today is delivered by AAL to Business, a program developed by AAL. Let's get started with the main topic. To prepare the exploitation of a project and to start disseminating project results, you probably know that it's important to identify the problems that your solution is addressing. It's also important to identify who are the ones who feel this problem the most, the users, the target group of any dissemination activity, your prospective customers. It's also important to identify the unique value proposition that is, we will see in more detail in a while, what makes the novel solution much better than current ones. And it's also important to identify how you are planning to reach out to our customers, to your customers. It's also important to understand the cost of providing our target groups with the novel solution and how to monitor progresses. The Lean Canvas is a tool that can help you in these crucial activities. In this presentation, I will explain you why the Lean Canvas is so important, and we will learn how to use it by analyzing all components of this canvas, particularly some key concepts such as early adopters and unique value proposition. The starting point is a question. What are the main issues and problems that startups, spin-offs, new ventures have to face when they are starting their activities and they want to commercialize their solutions? As you can see in this slide, the biggest problem is represented by the fact that there is no market need to fulfill and that these organizations consequently run out of cash. So let's start from a simple but true statement. The main reason behind a failure is the lack of enough customers. Why? Why are not enough customers, and therefore how can we find more paying customers? Startups fail because the product or the service is designed not for the market or the users. Every customer has a problem, every problem has a solution, but the other way around is not true. Not every solution has a problem, and not every problem has a customer. When launching an innovative solution, entrepreneurs, innovators, researchers are usually unable to find a real problem to solve. And if you don't manage to detect a problem to solve, it's inevitable you fail in building up a client base. So that's why the motto you see in this slide should become your mantra. How can we overcome this problem? How can we help researchers and entrepreneurs to identify the problem? First, to focus on the problem rather than the solution. Well, the right answer is to think about a business model. Why thinking about a business model? Why putting a lot of efforts in identifying the correct business? Let's see, first of all, what a business model is. There are a lot of definitions. I pick up this definition from Investopedia. Essentially, a business model is about understanding what you can sell, for how much, and who will buy it. So, thinking about the business model forces you to ask you some questions and should also push you to find a proper answer to these questions. And believe me, as Meta Group, we have been working for a long time with innovators, entrepreneurs, researchers, and when we ask them these questions, they often fail to provide a consistent answer. When dealing with business model, canvas, business schools, the most used canvas is the so-called business model canvas, designed almost 10 years ago by Alex Osterwalder to support the user to provide the right answers to the questions you saw written in the previous slide. The fact is that this canvas is quite complex and is more suited for established businesses rather than for early stage companies such as startups, spin-off, and also for research projects. And this is the reason why a researcher called Ash Maurya designed some years ago a canvas called Lean Canvas that represents a sort of evolution of the business model canvas I mentioned in the previous slide. This canvas is better suited for new companies and R&D projects and is essentially based on problems, on customers, and on the connection between them. So this tool forces you to identify core problems, identify customer segments affected by these problems. In other words, those people who are willing to find a solution to these problems. The Lean Canvas can be used for different purposes, helping you in designing the right go-to-market strategy of your project, startup, and or spin-off, supporting you in doing your business plan, and also supporting you when preparing an elevator pitch, for example, where you have to provide potential investors, or also you have to provide to your organization with key elements of your solution in maximum 3 minutes. And the Lean Canvas can be very helpful in writing down the core elements of your idea that then can be used in your pitch. And the Lean Canvas can also help you to understand if your current business is running well or not, if there are critical elements, bottlenecks, or things that need to be changed. For all these reasons, the Lean Canvas is extremely powerful. Just let me be clear, just filling in this canvas can take less than 1 hour, but do it properly is a different story. So the Lean Canvas should be, and I will get back to this point later on. The Lean Canvas is and should be an iterative tool that should be also continuously revised, upgraded each time you got new information and elements related to your idea. So that said, let's see the canvas in more detail. So when approaching the Lean Canvas, some questions are essential. What is your customer's problem? And with customer, I mean here potentially any kind of customer. The next question is who your customer is. You need to go into more details, and you need also to better define and analyze your customer segments. In other words, you need to find out who is willing to pay to solve at least one of the problems you identify with the first question. As we will see in the next slides, it's extremely important to distinguish, especially in the health sector between users and customers. The next question is about the alternative solutions that are currently used to solve the problem you identified. How many times in our working activity we heard from different teams and research groups that they were the first ones to provide a given service or product, and that no one else was providing the market with that solution. In most cases, this is not true. And even if this is the case, and again, I have to say that quite often it's not, this is not the point. The point is, if your solution is able to solve a given problem, and more importantly, if your solution is better than others to do it. And of course, you have to be accurate in explaining why your solution is more efficient. Being better, faster, or cheaper is not enough at all. And most of the time doesn't mean anything. You need to provide quantitative data, for example, by stating that you can reduce the speed or the cost of a given service by X%, or you can reduce the number of domestic accidents by X%. So let's take a look at the different components of the Lean Canvas. This is a template of the Lean Canvas. You can find a lot of templates for free in the web. I put in this Canvas numbers that show you how you should go through the Canvas. Let's see more detail how to approach the first blocks that are more relevant for you at the moment, because the first blocks include key concepts such as early adopters and value proposition and unique value proposition. So the first block on the left is about the problem, the top problems. So the starting point, as I already told you, is to brainstorm and to identify the top 3 problems, only the core problems that you think you can solve with your solution. Once you are done with this, you can move to block 2, customer segments, on your right, to identify the target customers. Again, you can detect different types of customers: hospitals, insurances, caregivers, final users, such as elderly people and or their families. I'm just focusing on, the typical solution developed and problems developed and faced by research projects funded by AAO. So I was saying different kind of customers. And once you have done this, establish a relationship between block 1 and block 2. That is, between your core problems, the problems identified in the first block, and those customers that more than others are interested in solving that specific problem. Then narrow down your search, go into more details of your target customers, and identify the so-called early adopters, a more specific category of people who in the short term, let's say medium term, are more worth focusing on for different reasons. They are more willing to pay. You already know them, so they are easier to target, easier to convince to try your solution. And once you are done with this, go back to block 1 and write down the solutions the early adopters are currently using to solve the problems you identified previously. So the so-called alternative solutions, the solutions provided so far to the market by your competitors, let's say. It doesn't matter if these solutions are not the most effective ones. What matters is that are the solutions adopted by your early adopters so far in order to tackle and solve the problems you listed in the first block. Before moving on, it's probably worth spending some additional words on the concept of early adopters. We said early adopters are extremely important. And you can understand why from this graphic. In this graphic, you can see that early adopters represent the bridge enabling you to move from the lab, from the pilot, to the early majority. That represents the market. And you see there is a gap to be filled called chasm, which is hard to cross because it's not easy to move from the inner circle of innovators to the market. So finding the early adopters is key because they represent the bunch of people who more than others understand your innovation, who are willing to use it, and who can give you, more importantly, a valuable feedback and who can introduce you to other prospective customers. So finding the right early adopters can be a long and tough journey. The main feature of the Lean Canvas is that it's as I told you, it's an iterative process, meaning that you can revise and redo it anytime. So let's embrace this iterative approach, meaning that you can try with a first type of early adopters, brainstorm honestly and assess all the aspects related to them. And at the end, if you realize that they don't suit you, for instance, because you realize that it's too hard to reach out to them, you can start the process again and change your initial assumptions. Do you remember the 4 key questions I showed you before at the beginning? So getting back to them, answering to the first question, for example, if we answer to the first question that doctors, physicians, are your early adopters is not enough. What kind of doctors? Doctors operating in cities, in the countryside, specialist doctor, family doctors, doctors working in hospital or in surgeries, young or more aged doctors. So this is the first move. Again, don't forget that this is an iterative process. And if after the first attempt, you have the feeling that there is something wrong, that it doesn't work, make another attempt, involve in the process other people as well, of course, do it and do it again. And when you think that it makes sense, that there is a good correspondence between block 1 on the left and block 2 on the right, that you are able to reach out to your early adopters in a sustainable and effective way, then you can move on. So we have seen the first move. The next step is to write down a unique value proposition, a simple, clear, compelling message stating why you are different and why you are better than the alternative solutions. The message should be set, adjusted on the early adopters. and on problems and alternative solutions previously identified. It's extremely important that the message is short, clear, and compelling with verifiable data. So to solve problem A, you can do things better, such as improving efficiency by 20%, reducing operative cost by 50%, making data usable and accessible, and so on. The unique value proposition is not a description of your solution or your activities. And we will go into more detail in a while. As you can see, the value proposition corresponds to the central block in the canvas, representing in this way the core of your plan. So let's spend more time on this key concept. Why is it important to define a good value proposition? Well, because if you are able in an honest way to highlight the needs of the market, the needs of your clients, depicted here by the blue circle, and to highlight everything you can do, depicted here by the green circle, and also what are the solutions available on the market, depicted here by the purple circle, then you should be able, in a simple way, to point out what you can provide that your competitors cannot, represented here by the area called point of difference. Again, just saying that you are better, cheaper in doing something is not enough. You should clearly demonstrate with data why you are better. You are cheaper by X%, faster by X%. You can provide a data set that guarantees the interoperability between different software, for example, or you can reduce failure rates or domestic accidents, for example, by X%. What you should aim to is the point of difference that must be clearly stated in your unique value proposition. So you don't want a point of parity. What matters is the point of difference, and what you do that the others don't do, and that matters to your clients. So your value proposition must be understandable in just a few seconds. It must be clear for everybody what you do, why you are better, and it should reflect the perspective of the early adopters you have chosen previously. It should be understandable literally from anybody, not only from your colleagues. It looks simple, but believe me, it's not. In most of the academies we have been running, when we asked to highlight the UVP, at the first attempt, 99% of our interlocutors failed. So devote a lot of time to this, and the best way to work on it is to tell your statement to as many people as possible in order to see what their response and reactions are. If you remember the slide I shared with you at the beginning with the list of webinars, you should remember that the next webinar is about the value proposition canvas. That is a canvas that can support you in defining a very effective and clear unique value proposition. Let's take a look at some examples. Well, the first assumption or rule of thumb is that to go successfully to the market, you should provide something that is at least 10 times better than what is currently on the market. The example here is about an innovative services to fix iPhones, saying that you will fix iPhones fast doesn't mean anything. Saying that you will do it in less than 1 hour is something. Stating that you will do it in less than 1 hour wherever you are means that you are providing value for a specific category of people that in this example could be business travelers and tourists traveling abroad. And it means that you are going to solve a specific need. Yeah, of course, this is a very basic example, just to make you understand the level of detail you need to provide in a unique value proposition. What is the selling point of this example? In this example, the driver is that you are going to solve what can represent a big problem for a specific category of people that are, again, travelers for business or for leisure. Most of us are addicted to smartphones, and the assumption here is that you are out of your comfort zone, and therefore you are willing to spend a considerable amount of money for this kind of service that can solve a big problem for you. The second example is about a web resume generator, a website where you can put your data in and then it generates a CV. The first sentence means nothing, it's too generic. The second sentence is not a UVP, just describes what the product is. But if you say that you can help people to find their dream job through a professional designed resume, this is a unique value proposition. Why? Because it implies you have identified a specific goal, a specific target of people, job seekers in this case, with a specific need to fulfill. If you know all this, you know how to price it, how to promote it, and consequently, you can start making revenues. Let's go back to our canvas. Only once you have defined your unique value proposition, you can describe the top features of your product. Keep in mind that you can have more than one value proposition. If you have identified different kinds of customers, you should define a unique value proposition for each customer segment. And consequently, you have to define different features which better suit the different kind of customers that you identified previously. So, for each kind of customer, you should define a different value proposition and different features as well. So when focusing on the solution and its top features, the less is better. In other words, if you manage to identify the right target customer and you manage to define the right UVP, you should be able to identify the very core features that are the drivers for people to pay for your solution, enabling you to concentrate your efforts and resources on the features that can really make the difference between the success and the failure of your solution. Let's take a look at the Lean Canvas step by step. Now, skimming the first 4 blocks that are the most relevant, and dedicating more time to the remaining blocks. So we have already spoken a lot about these two blocks, block 1 and block 2. Don't forget that if you have detected more than one main customer segment, you should make as many canvases as the number of main customer segments. So if your solution is a mobile hub for both doctors and insurances, you have here two main customer segments, and therefore you should define two different canvases, one for the doctors and the other one for insurances. One more thing, pay attention not to make confusion. And this happens very often in the health aging sector. Don't make confusion between users and customers. Customers are those subjects that are available to pay for your solution. In some cases, but only in some cases, users can correspond to customers. In other cases, they don't. So it's easy to make this kind of confusion, particularly in the digital sector. Users are, of course, important because without the final users, there is no business. But at this level, what matters most are the customers that are available to pay and that make your business sustainable. And then again, the unique value proposition. As I told you, it has to be easy to get, it must be brilliant, it has to create the wow effect, and it has to raise attention. Avoid generic terms such as system, platform, tool, and try to find the right balance between the need to provide more elements, more details, and the need to be easy and to understand. Try to be more detailed, even though not too technical. This is an hardware, this is a software, a website, a mobile app, a wearable, a sensor. Don't use acronyms, technical details. Everybody should get it immediately. So this is, as I told you, this is not the place to explain how your technology works. You are likely to interact with business people who are not interested in how your technology works, rather how you can solve a specific problem in a better way. So this is the opportunity to communicate that you are the best one to solve a given problem, to provide a solution for a particular problem. It has to be short and catchy and easy at the same time. I know, easier said than done, but this should be the main features for an idea UBP. As we have seen after the definition of the UBP, it's time to describe your solution. This is the only space in the link canvas where you can use technical words to describe your solution. That is the only space in the link canvas that is devoted to technical specifications. So here in the fourth block, you can describe the core features of your solution, what makes your solution from the technical point of view better than the existing ones. And then the fifth block, channels. This is probably, let's say, the easiest block, but nevertheless, this is the block where many people fail. Whatever is the segment you chose in the previous steps, you should be able here to evaluate what are the best channels to reach your customers in a sustainable way. You have to be consistent with your previous choices, and you have also to be clear on how to reach them in a feasible and credible manner. Just to be clear, if you tell me that GPs, family doctors are your main target, you can't tell me that your main channel is Facebook or newsletter, but rather you are going to use a mix of conferences, events, partnerships, and friends. Again, if you tell me that your main target are hospitals in a given country, for instance, let's say France, you can't tell me that you are going to get in contact with all of them unless you have the contact details of most of the procurement managers of this organization. Otherwise, it doesn't sound feasible and it doesn't make any sense. Block 6 and 7 are more complex, because here it's a question of costs and revenues, and so financial. It's not only a question of numbers in any case. With regard to revenue, you have basically to determine where are your source of revenue. How do you make money? What is your business model, your revenue model? How do your customer pay? They pay per unit, per month, a flat subscription, they pay per views. Keep being consistent with the choices you made previously. Again, each block of the link canvas should be linked to the other ones. And after that, provide figures. What is the size of revenues you can expect from a single customer? If you work for hospital or insurances, you probably need less customers to be sustainable than if your customers are patients and or families. And according to the size of revenues you can expect from a single customer, and according to the expected costs, you can figure out how many customers you need in your business in order to be sustainable from the financial point of view. In parallel, do the same for costs. First of all, it's important to make a distinction between fixed and variable costs. Variable costs are costs you incur whenever you sell the product. Variable costs generally comprise the cost of goods. Fixed costs are costs you are going to incur regularly, let's say every month, such as salaries, rents, any legal and service fees, regardless for the amount of goods or services sold. After doing that, then you have to go into more details of each category and determine the money paid for servers, ICT developers, advertising, software, etc. And after defining the type of your cost, then you can roughly estimate your costs per year. The 8th block is about key metrics. Metrics are all numbers you have to keep an eye on in order to have success. Metrics don't refer neither to the number of customers nor to the amount of revenues. Metrics are related to those elements that make you understand that you are delivering value. You should provide in your link canvas at least 3 key metrics. You need to measure the value that you provide your customer with your solution. For example, if you work with doctors in assessing patients at home, a key metric could be the higher number of patients that doctors can assess in a given amount of time. And the higher number, the more value for the doctors, of course. or the amount of data that doctors can handle thanks to your solution, or the less time needed for assessing one single patient. Again, if you work with hospitals, the higher amount of data or the interoperability of this data or the number of screened patients. If you work with insurances, the number of new clients signing in, their level of satisfaction. The important thing is to know what your key metrics are and to know how you can deliver value to your customer. If you can monitor this, you are in the best position after a given period of time, let's say 1 year, to understand if you are delivering the expected amount of value, and if not, to make any adjustment you may need. The last block, the last part you have to fill in is about what your unfair advantage is. The unfair advantage is something that cannot be easily copied or bought by your competitors. In other words, all those elements that prevent others from copying your solution in the short term. You can see in the slide some elements that could, let's say, make sure that your solution and your business can't be easily copied. A patent, a particular data set, previous business contacts, endorsements by the right experts, the fact that you are part of a specific network or community, the fact that you have a great team behind you, a remarkable CEO ranking, all elements that are not easy to replicate and that make you best positioned to provide a given service or product. Being able from the very first beginning to highlight in a clear way your unfair advantage is key when you need to convince a potential investor, a potential customer, or even the European Commission to invest in or fund you. So this is the end of the first part of my presentation. Then the last part is dedicated to an example, a case study about Amazon, just to better familiarize with the rationale behind the lean canvas. So I chose, there are a lot of different case studies in internet you can find and use. I chose Amazon because, well, we all know Amazon. We all know about Amazon and, roughly speaking, its business model. So it's easier for all of you to better understand why I'm going to show you the meaning behind the contents that I'm going to show you. So this is our canvas. As I told you, the first block to start with is about the problem on the left. So what are the top 3 problems that Amazon is going to solve with its business? Well, the first problem could be the fact that bookstores are expensive. The second element is that bookstores have limited inventory. So we would like to buy a specific book, we go to the bookstores and we can't find it. And the third problem is it's hard to find the right book and get also recommendations at bookstores about some books that better than others could fit with our need. What are the existing alternatives in order to solve these problems? Well, the alternatives were the bookstores in itself, some catalogs, and also book clubs. So before Amazon, in order to solve the problems listed here, the existing alternatives were the ones listed here. Let's go now to the block on the right. So customer segments. Who are the customers, Amazon's customers? Well, book readers, of course, generally speaking. I'm talking about Amazon at the very first beginning, of course, when it started its business with books. But let's think about the early adopters. Again, the early adopters are those prospective customers that better than others are willing to pay for your product or service. And in this case, I would say passionate book readers that use internet and are willing to buy online. So those are at the very first beginning were Amazon's early adopters. And then, of course, when Amazon managed to expand its business, Amazon managed also to expand their category of customers willing to buy for its product. So the unique value proposition for Amazon, very quickly and very simple. The largest bookstore on earth. This is the shortest, probably, unique value proposition possible, but it's not bad at all, in my opinion, because you can understand just with 4 words what is the value provided by Amazon. The fact that you can find basically everything in it, and this is a good reply, a good solution offered in order to solve some of the problems that we have seen in the previous slide concerning the top problems that Amazon intends to solve with its business. And also the supermarket of books online, and probably together the largest supermarket, online supermarket on earth, because here you have 2 main concepts, 2 main values delivered by Amazon. The fact that is online. Well, it's clear what, in these 2 sentences, it's clear what Amazon is selling, books. It's clear how Amazon is going to sell them online. And it's also clear, probably the most important value that Amazon is able to provide with its customers. The fact that you can find everything. So in 2 simple, these are 2 good examples of unique value, of very simple unique value proposition that can communicate important values to the customers. The next block is the solution, the part where you can go into more detail and explain the features of your solution, your service, your product. You can describe what you do. So here you can say that it's a website, very easily, but in any case, a website selling the most books available. That is a web-based customer reviews. That also your solution envisages direct shipping from distributors. So from these three sentences, you have a clue of what Amazon at the very beginning was doing, selling through a website a wide range of books available on the market. That in the website there was it could be found a web-based customer reviews, and that books once sold were shipped directly from distributors to the customers. How is Amazon going to reach customers? Well, e-commerce, so direct sales to the customers through a website. I would say also emails used by Amazon to get people to click to buy their product. So emails are as a channel to attract customers and build sales. And then the revenue. What are the source of revenues? In Amazon's case, at the very first beginning, it's pretty straightforward, book sales. This is for sure a revenue source. But also there are also charged shipping. So another source for revenue for Amazon is basically shipping fees. The cost structure, as I told you before, it's important here to think about both the fixed and variable costs. We have seen before that fixed costs are linked to the product you are selling, whereas fixed costs are costs you incur regardless of the amount of goods sold. So what you should do here is to think the key areas of your business operations, of your business model that are going to incur costs. So first of all, in Amazon's case, of course, so getting back to Amazon's case, first of all costs related to the website operations and the staff involved. And then the customer service, which is a key area for Amazon. And then another key area of operation is logistics. Even though at the beginning Amazon was not shipping out of its own, it still had to manage the shipping with its distributors. And what else? Books. This is a variable cost because we are going to incur this cost whenever we sell a book as Amazon. And then we got key metrics. The key question here is how you are going to measure your performance. So let's take a look at some basic numbers that are really important to e-commerce for Amazon. For example, the sales conversion per visitor. For every person showing up in our website, how many buy something? And this is very important in order to figure out your assumptions about your traffic and how much revenue you will generate. Another key metric can be, in Amazon's case, the average sales transaction. So when someone buys something, what is the average sale? You can easily understand that having 100 customers buying an average of 100 euro each is different from having 1,000 customers buying on average 10 euros each. The revenue generated is the same, but customer behavior is completely different, and you may need to adjust your pricing, your products mix, or both, to satisfy the way people are actually interacting and using your product. Another key metric could be the total sales to visitor ratio, which is a sort of combination of the two metrics above, and it's useful to understand if I can get another 10,000 visitors to my site, I can increase my sales by X. There are a lot of different key metrics available. There are lists of key metrics for different revenue models in internet. It's not a big problem to pick up the right ones. Some of them that better than others could fit with your purposes. Just remember that all these figures are important when you should focus your time and efforts, where you should focus your time and efforts to generate more revenue. The last block is about unfair advantage. In Amazon's case, the unfair advantage comes from the fact that they were the first movers. They defined the business model, started with books, they made their business model, they grew, and then they started to expand by adding new products. Basically, it's not clear to replicate such a business because it takes time and a lot of investments. So there are a lot of entry barriers. And in Amazon's case, it's also worth noting that whenever another company was able to have to get the similar unfair advantage Amazon had, but for example with a different type of product, well, Amazon in many cases bought it. This is the case, I don't know if you remember, or I don't know if you know that this is the case, for example, of Zappos, that with shoes had the same unfair advantage as Amazon, and Amazon bought it on 2009. And the same occurred with diapers.com. That was an online retailer specialized in baby products that was bought by Amazon in 2010. So this is just a simple, trivial exercise, a case study, in order to make you better understand how to use the link canvas and how to approach it. We have been using the link canvas with our academies within the AAL2 business framework. So a lot of organizations and projects funded by AAL projects went through this canvas. And again, this can be a useful tool. You should go through each block and provide an answer to each one of these blocks. And once you have done, don't forget that you don't have a business, but just a bunch of assumptions of what you think your business would be. So the next step would be to start validating your assumptions. So to understand if what you wrote and defined in the link canvas has a correspondence to the reality out there. So the next step would be start validating your assumptions, both before starting the business and once you have launched your business as well. But this is another story, and that could be a topic for one of the next webinars. Thank you for your attention.